Well, I'll tell you guys what. It's been a real pleasure today. Very nice temperature.
I would disagree.
A little
strongly.
toasty, you know.
I would also disagree. I do
too
not
hot.
feel.
It was only like 105 when we were filming. That's not too bad.
Terrible.
105.
The sweat in my leggings would disagree that it felt good.
Long pants was a crazy choice. I will say that.
Yeah, I just yeah. They're so comfy. You know?
Sure, but not when they're blazing hot. You know, you're in a sauna in your pants. You know.
I can understand. I don't think it would have made a difference. I was
No.
in shorts and I was still so hot.
Yeah.
Also, I feel
Maybe
like
the secret is the cut off tee,
The cut off. Yeah.
muscle
the pants
tee.
kind of
Yeah.
absorb a lot of the sweat, though. You know, so like
True.
otherwise there's that like nasty feeling of it just like rolling down your legs.
Yeah.
Feels like you peed yourself.
Mhm.
It's not great.
Well, I'll tell you the most exciting part is after this pod, we get to hit the pool and cool down. So that I'm excited for.
That'll be nice.
That'll be very nice. Lounge in the pool, that sounds so nice. It's gonna be,
It does.
I can't
Is there
wait.
gonna be like 700 children in the pool?
It's
Maybe,
about
but
close
we
to
can
that, yeah.
Alright.
we can hit the other pool though, if we
Yeah,
have to.
there is another smaller
The other
pool
pool's
that
more
much less
low-key.
people go
Okay.
to.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have anything against children. I'm
Yeah.
just mentally
Yeah.
preparing for the
No,
vibe.
it's a lot.
It's a lot.
Okay.
It is a
It's
lot. Yeah. So, new guest,
Yes.
Ashley, your guys' first time meeting. And here's the
Yes.
fun part about this. We've been friends for like 18 years.
Yeah, a long time.
A long time, you know. This is
That's
probably,
over half our lives.
realistically probably one of
That's
my
crazy.
first like female friends, other than this girl Brittany who I went to daycare with when we were like 5.
She had me beat a little bit.
But other than that, like I would say you were my first like long-term girlfriend that I stayed in touch with for a long time, which is kind of cool.
Because you came to Calvin when I was were you a sophomore and I was a junior?
No, I was a freshman.
You're
yeah.
a freshman. Okay, so I
Yeah.
was a sophomore.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, so pretty wild. And we always
Yeah.
stayed in touch and had a good vibe, you know, good fun vibe.
Well, I hear it didn't quite start out like that, though. I hear, James, you might not have been the most pleasant person at the time.
I don't know why. James had I still to this day don't know what I did wrong, but James called me a bitch whenever he saw me for like straight 3 months.
I don't
God.
think you probably did anything wrong.
No.
I think James went through a point in life, so I've come to understand from stories where I think he just felt like that was cool.
Just a lot of angst.
I
Yeah.
This 14-year-old boy with a bowl cut.
my bowl cut. We should flash the picture of us on the bike right here in the pod. Maybe we will. Maybe we'll
Yeah.
flash the picture. Yeah, my bowl cut was not it.
No.
You know.
Maybe that was the source of the
I'll
problem.
be honest with
Yeah.
you. I was trying to get like attention from women for a lot of years, and I was getting none. You
And
know?
you didn't
Well,
think
you
maybe
scored?
the bowl
It might
cut?
have been the bowl cut.
That like beaver cut with your ultra straight hair
That was like white blonde too. Yeah, it looked so
And it was
ridiculous.
so cut so straight.
Yeah. I looked like Elton John, but with like crazy blonde hair.
There was a period I feel like in some of the photos it had like it got long enough that you had somewhat of a
For a while.
wisp to it for
For a
like
while.
a true Bieber cut.
I
That
did.
was better than
Yeah.
the like bangs.
Yeah, it started with, like she said, the straight like curtains of bangs.
Well, he has this thing now where
Which
he's
girls
dying,
is actually popular for girls now. Is the bangs that I had. Women have that
except
now.
you're a male.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
That's
like
the
Yeah.
one.
I had it early, you know.
You're the actual trendsetter of the bangs.
I am, yeah, back in the
He
day.
saw it on you and said,
Yeah.
"Oh,
Like,
this is what it looks like on a male. Maybe it'll look better on a female." Yeah, he sported a little while back a what he calls a mullet.
Oh, it was
It
fine.
was really more like a faux hawk kind of thing because it was still like longer on the top and it was just only short on like the sides.
Okay.
It was a fan favorite,
But
though.
it was
though.
almost for the most part the same length all the way
So
across.
controversial opinion. I love a mullet.
I
The
love a
fans
mullet.
loved it. The fans loved it.
I don't
James
love a
just
faux
wasn't a
hawk.
mullet.
She didn't love it. See,
Uh-uh.
I
Well, just imagine those bangs that he had.
Oh.
but I had
But
it pulled
then-
back though.
But then the majority of the time that you didn't have a pound of hairspray in it, it was not pulled back. And so then he just had those like straight bangs.
This
like,
is
right here.
fake news.
It's not.
You cannot find a video where I have this.
No,
There's
because
no
we
way.
styled it for the videos, but off
She had to
camera.
wake up to you with your bangs.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I said that is not happening again. Unless he goes, but he refuses to pay for a haircut. I said, unless you go and professionally get this thing cut so it's a true mohawk or a mullet,
Yeah.
is not happening. Because the one you had before,
Well, see, I had the Matte Shadows inspired one where it was like here and then the sides were shaved like down to the skin. So it was like it was a mohawk, you know, but I will say the viewers loved it. It was a popular haircut, maybe my most popular.
It fits your personality for
You know?
sure.
Were people like, what does that mean the viewers love the haircut? Would they comment, James, love the hair?
Yes, people have said bring it back many times. And I want to, but Brianna fights me tooth and nail. So.
Well, it sounds like she's willing to make a compromise. You just have to go get it
I
professionally
guess,
done.
but I want the kind of ragged looking one.
No.
You know?
What if you got a perm?
I will say one of the
A permed mullet?
a perm
Come
would
on.
be hilarious. So one of the funniest comments I ever saw when I had the mullet was a guy left a comment and said, "This guy for sure has the award for the YouTuber with the worst mullet."
that was the true
So the
feeling
fans
of it.
love the
That was only
mullet.
one. That guy wasn't a fan though. He was a hater.
I think it was all like people thought it was so funny. They thought it, as they would say, it fucks.
It
But,
did fuck. Yeah.
It was
It
because
did.
it was funny, not because it looked
I
amazing.
feel that's a bit sus.
It was
but, I mean,
preposterous.
yeah.
It really was.
I support whatever hairstyle you want, James, even
Thank
if it's
you.
the bowl cut
She
again.
used to do my hair, actually. I would say the first time I got like a good fashionable haircut, she gave it to me. I really think so.
Maybe we should drive you to St. George every time you need a haircut.
Yeah.
I mean, we did it anyways. We just had Nick cutting it, so.
Oh, Nick actually is very good at haircuts.
Yeah.
Okay,
Very
I
good at
feel like
haircuts.
I've seen his haircuts that he's done
Yeah.
on you, and he does a pretty good
He
job.
does.
He like
He
knows
does.
how to fade and everything.
He's my
Yeah.
best haircut.
He can fade. He
Okay.
does a really good, like,
Yeah.
cut line.
Like
I
Matt-
suck at giving
Yeah.
James a line.
Like Matt's pretty good, Brianna's pretty good, but Nick's definitely the best.
Okay.
Yeah, he's very
Yeah.
good at giving me
Go
haircut.
Nick.
I think honestly it's because he's a welder, so they have such like still hands.
Oh, probably.
You know, like I think
And
he's
like
got a steady hand.
precise, like probably a
Very.
good attention to detail.
Very.
Makes sense.
Like he would cut a line and like fade the line, like just do cool stuff. So, but anyway, we're here to talk about archery. Right?
Yes.
It's an archery podcast. There's one of my bows right there, and this one we're giving away. I don't know if it's in the shot or not, but go to the website bowdisciples.com, purchase any item, be entered to win that bow, which I think is pretty exciting, right?
Yeah.
But for you. You shot a bow for the first time
I
today.
did.
Ever. You never shot a bow
No.
ever. Not a single time in your whole life.
No.
Okay. So tell me about this, because obviously you've known me a long time. So
Yeah.
you knew about shooting bows for a long
Yeah.
time. But you never done it.
Yes.
Give me your thoughts when you first just held the bow. Were you like, oh, this is going to be a disaster? Or like, how did you feel?
So it felt pretty good. Like, I guess I didn't really think about holding it. My worry was my eyes. Like, I know that my eyes aren't great, and I know that I'm left eye dominant, and I was shooting right-handed. So I think I was kind of hyper-focused on trying to figure out my eyeballs.
Yeah.
But I mean, it wasn't too hard
Yeah.
in general.
What
Yeah.
did you think was like, what would you say was the part of the process or just like shooting in general that like maybe caught you off guard the most that you didn't expect, like whether physically or visually? Like, was there one part of it that you're like, I didn't think it would feel like this or look
My
like
stupid
this?
left arm that was locking out.
Oh,
I didn't
okay.
think that would be an issue.
And for women, that's super common. Like, it's
Yeah.
almost every girl,
That's weird.
isn't it?
My elbows
Yeah.
hyperextend, so I guess it's like I tend to just naturally hyperextend my arms.
Yeah. And there are shooters that are like one of the best shooters in the world. Her name's Paige. She shoots with an elbow like that, but you got to kind of adjust your bow and your shooting around it a little bit. But most people will teach to have like a little bit of like how I was teaching you to have that bow. But for some people, that's really, really hard to do. For you, I know you can do it because I was watching you make the adjustment, but it was funny to watch when your mind would get like a little bit unfocused. That was like the first thing to
Just like,
evaporate
back
in
in,
your
yeah.
form, you know? Which like you struggled with that when we first met. A little bit of doing the elbow and then struggling to keep it like bent when Bruce would try to teach you. What made it, because now you shoot very consistently with the good elbow position, but what helped you make that turn?
I don't know. I mean, I would probably say that, like, I'm not double jointed. So I think it's a lot easier for it to not creep back in for me because I can't give that extra extension.
Yeah.
Especially when like the whole like big part of the process is the push and the pull. And so when you're concentrating on doing that, it's very easy for the push to become over excessive.
Yeah.
And I can't overextend. So it's just like, it's either straight or it's bent.
Yeah.
And the only time it creeps back in is when I get tired and then the shoulder comes up,
Yeah.
so then the arm straightens out.
Getting tired's a big thing in any sport, but especially, you know, in archery you can just see it so visually when someone starts to get tired. And before we dropped the poundage on that bow, like you and me both could see it, she was like getting worn out and shaking. And that's
it's not the
a good
draw, because the draw was easy. Like the draw looks
It's just the
smooth.
hold.
It's the holding it for so long to think through.
And you can't learn
the
like
face,
that.
the nose, the
Yeah.
arm, you know, and then the longest portion trying to focus on like getting sight through your bad eye, focusing through the bad eye. So like eventually then you stop thinking about everything else, and then once you relax and that pressure's not there, then it starts to shake because everything wants to creep back in and close.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that is a very valuable part of the video we did, actually, is because I think a lot of times when people go to learn archery, they want to, for some reason there's like this ego thing in your head of like, oh, I need to pull this many pounds or I'm soft. And it's like, well, in reality, you should pull what you can shoot 1,000 times until you're comfortable and have the muscle memory and know what you're doing, and then gradually
Which, though,
increase the
for
poundage.
women,
And
we've
what-
talked about this an enormous amount of times, I feel like. Maybe not as much in the pod, but in videos, is that, like, you just can't take that sacrifice because
If you're hunting.
at least if you want to go in immediately into hunting, if you're good enough at shooting. Because you could do it all day long at the range, you know? Who cares? But when you put a live animal that's, you know, life or suffering, depends on you, you need the poundage. So, like, that's like mine. Like, I max out after, I've never counted how many shots. We should do that in a video, like how many times can I shoot my bow before I can't draw it back anymore.
Before you get tired, but like even then, I think like for people that are just trying to get reps through a bow, I would suggest dropping that poundage way down and getting used to it and gradually building up. That way, when you are ready to hunt, your muscle memory is so dialed, you can crank up the poundage and you know how to get to your anchor quicker. So like I talked about in the video, you're not holding the draw as long. Because I think I certainly noticed it watching you, and I'm not sure if you felt it, but like as you started to do the process faster, you were getting so much more comfortable and less shaky. At least it looked like.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely noticed when you made the adjustment, it was a lot easier to hold it because I noticed my back arm was kind of trying to pull forward. Like, I couldn't keep it back.
Yeah.
Which was interesting. But then typically one would like just slowly increase, what is it called?
Poundage. Yeah. Draw poundage, yeah.
As they like progress in the sport, right? It's like that's something you're going to want to do is like start light, get good form doing that, and then...
Yep, exactly.
And that's
it's
the
just
only
like
reason it's creeping forward is you think like that's weird. The bow's, you know, it's a lighter draw weight, poundage, but it's because it's lighter. So you like immediately like you're like, oh, that was easy. No need to focus on that anymore. Let's focus on here, here, and here.
Yeah.
But then you stop focusing on this because it felt so light. Well, now you're not putting any tension here. So all it wants to do is jump forward.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And so like it has to always like until it becomes a subconscious thing, it always has to be a conscious thought that's like on a constant loop, while everything else is a checkpoint, a checkpoint, a checkpoint, finger, put pressure and release. But like that one has to be on a loop because otherwise, especially bows like you said, that bow was a little jumpy, like it had not much back wall. Not much back wall. So like if you don't think about it, it just wants to hop forward.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so.
And I will say one thing she did that's very rare for someone with 10 shots under their belt is like she was doing a lot of surprise breaks. You know, like you could tell she didn't know the shot was going off. Usually when you teach someone new, they're just like slapping the trigger and like there's no like pulling through. You really were like building tension, and when the release broke, you didn't know. Like you didn't know it was coming, which is
that seems so weird. Like
but that's
what
what
did you
you
say?
want.
Like I want to be scared.
Yeah, because
I'm trying to scare myself.
Because like Brianna doesn't shoot that way.
I do not shoot that way.
And
I command to shoot, so I make the shot go off.
And she has shot like that. Like she's been coached by the master at teaching that technique. but she's has trouble like applying it long term.
Yeah.
And for you to
Lasts
just
about 3
do it
shots.
your first few tries is very uncommon.
They say it's the better
usually
way to
people
shoot.
start just slapping the trigger, and you actually started by like what Joel teaches, building pressure and breaking the shot.
Yeah.
Well, I will say it was not on purpose.
But it's good.
Yeah.
Like,
Which
that's
is
you
what
want
he
to
would
do.
say. It
Yeah.
shouldn't be on purpose.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he always says like you want to move the trigger so slow
That
you
you
can
could stop
stop
at any
it.
point.
Mhm.
and then like try to feel it move, and then it just like your mind can't anticipate it going off.
Okay.
And you were doing that
Yeah.
because
You
when she
can't-
would break a shot, I would watch her like do the blink he talks about right after,
Yeah.
which is what you want.
Yeah.
If you're gonna
I
shoot
just
some
literally
surprise
don't
breaks.
blink at all.
Yeah,
Which
yeah.
is why I'm not surprise breaking. I'm command shooting, but
Which I do kind of a
it-
mix.
I-
But
you know, I do if I could figure out how to do it and do it all the time, I think I would have to literally take a break from hunting season
Mhm.
and do nothing but practice all of the time, blind bailing and shooting like that to ingrain it into myself, but it's so ingrained in me to just like, at least now I do put pressure. Like you'll very rarely I think see me,
just like open air
It
slap
anymore?
No,
Yeah.
you don't do that.
but I used to.
Yeah, but now you do build pressure for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
But pressure is definitely like what you're doing is the
Mhm.
way to go, because you would think like, oh well, like you flinch, you're scared, like it
Mhm.
wouldn't that affect the shot?
But you're
It's after the
flinching
shot,
after
the
the
arrow's
arrow's
coming
already
out
there.
so fast out of
Okay.
the bow, like
Yeah.
hundreds of feet a second,
Mhm.
that the arrow's gone by the time your body
Reacts.
has time to
That's,
react.
that's why it's so valuable.
Whereas if you
Oh.
command
Yeah.
shoot and we call
you're
it punching.
flinching before the arrow goes off.
Mhm.
That's the difference.
Mhm.
So you
Okay.
know it's coming. You're not scared, but that's your I think he calls it like a precognition movement or something. Like
Yeah.
you're reacting prior to the arrow going off. So now that like your pin's here, and then
Mhm.
like you don't notice it, but like it's over here when you break the shot.
Okay.
So you like
Yeah.
flinch. But
And you
you
can get
are
used to-
flinching, but you're flinching as the arrow's already at the target.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not moving
Interesting.
coming out of the bow.
But see, I not that I disagree with that method.
It's a
or
video
this
worth
method.
watching. If you
But-
do archery, you should watch the video I did with Joel.
Okay.
And I think it's very interesting because it's super scientific, like how he talks about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just kind of curious, like, you know, you do a lot of sports now,
Mhm.
and even growing up, you did kind of a fair amount of sports, like
Yeah.
when we were kids. But I know you have some interest in trying to, like, at some point, bow hunt.
Mhm.
What makes you interested in the thought of hunting sometime? Like, is it the meat? Is it the challenge? Is it both? Is it like what is it that kind of makes you interested?
So there's like a bunch of factors. One, the meat wasn't really a factor in it, which I didn't feel right in going hunting unless I was going to be able to eat the meat until recently, because I only recently started eating meat again after being vegetarian for like a decade.
Oh wow.
But I think what draws me to it the most is like I love the process of something being hard and the reward at the end. So like with my running or like triathlon, all of that, like it sucks and it's hard, but then when you pass the finish line or you complete it, you have all of this training or all of this time, effort, and energy spent in the process of getting to that point.
Yeah.
And so I feel like hunting is very similar, where it's like it's challenging, like it takes a lot of discipline, and then there's a reward, but with hunting, like the reward is something that you can actually utilize
Like live
after
off.
the fact.
Yeah.
Where like I do a long race, I pass the finish line and it's like, oh cool,
I have this medal to look at. but
yeah, I have
can't
this
eat that, or-
participation medal
Yeah,
that I
right,
want.
Right.
But there's no like reward really for
Yeah.
it, other than just like a nice rush of dopamine and
Yeah.
bragging rights. But
yeah, and say
Yep.
I did it.
That's so true. Like, I think that's what I love a lot of things about hunting, but the meat is huge to me
Mhm.
because that's like a huge part of my diet, and it's so much better than like a farm raised chicken or farm raised
Mhm.
beef, or even a farm raised elk or deer is not the same as a wild animal that's out
Yeah.
there to survive. And none of them make it to old age. Like, that doesn't happen.
Mhm.
Usually, very, very rarely. They're
Yeah.
usually dying of sickness or getting struck by lightning or getting killed by a mountain lion or a bear or a
Mhm.
hunter or like another buck. Like, you know, that happens all the time. So
Yeah.
like their whole life is to survive. So it's very, very hard. And when you pull it off, it's so cool. Like, you open our freezer, it's full of game meat
Mhm.
and a Coos deer head right now. But, like, you know, like, I love going in the freezer, picking out a deer or an elk, reading it, and go, all right, okay. And I remember which elk it was, which story it was, and then I get to live off it. Like, that's such an extra added thing that you don't really get in any other, like, I don't really call hunting a sport, but, like, I guess you'd call it a sport. You don't get that in anything else other than, like, gardening.
Yeah.
Like, maybe in gardening you kind of get that a little bit, but,
Yeah.
you know, I think that's a cool factor. And I do think it's, like, the hardest thing to do is bow hunting. Like, I think it's so hard to do.
Yeah.
Because the animal's only job in life is to survive.
Yeah.
So the wind's got to be perfect. They can't see you. They can't hear you. You got to get within 40 yards of them. Like, that is almost impossible to do. And then make a good shot when your adrenaline's, like, through the roof. Like, it's so difficult. So when all of it works, it's just like, it's a feeling you can't replicate, you know? I think you would agree with that. Like, when you shot your, you know, buck this year in January, like, we put a lot of effort into that. Spent like 3 hours on the stalk. We got in there, kind of went in different ways. It was snowing, raining, and then it happens, and it's like, you can't, what you're feeling in your person, you can't replicate.
No. And
you
sometimes, like, some people have different levels of, like, called buck fever or whatever. And sometimes you think you've outgrown it, and then, like, for whatever reason, the situation, I feel like it's probably similar to, like, what you'll feel at the end of a race. It's just like this enormous rush of adrenaline. And like, it's while you're sitting there, it's while you're hearing noises, like leading up to it, and then after it happens, like, I think even the one before that buck, the Coos the year before, I've never shaken so bad, hunting or otherwise, in my whole life.
Yeah.
And you'll see it in the video. I'm just like, I couldn't stop myself. I was like, looked like a person on crack cocaine. Like, it was insane. So it's definitely, like, even if you, like, you minimally go through the meat or whatever, just, like, I don't think it's a bad reason to do it for the sake of, like, wanting that challenge. Because, like, what better way to get your food than the most original way to get your food,
literally.
the most challenging way to get your food, you know?
I just think it's good for, like, the psyche to be like, you're reminded every day that you eat that like, you put so much effort into making that happen for yourself. And I think that like, human nature, humans now, I should say, we're so far away from that. Like, I want something, I go to the grocery store that's like 0.2 miles from my house, I grab, like, a thing of meat and I put it in my cart and then I cook it.
Yeah, I think there's something so strange about the people. So I want to go back to the vegetarian topic in a little bit, but so strange about the people who, like, are fervently against hunters or getting your meat that way, whatever form of hunting you do it in, because it's like, my mind would like to think that, like, give them the one opportunity where they do it, like, that you bring someone along with you and they don't think they're gonna like it or whatnot. Granted, they would, I think, need to be successful in the hunt to realize it, but I think their whole mindset would change because of those levels of adrenaline, dopamine, everything that you get once you do it. It's like, this is what, like, being a human is, like, this is what you're supposed to do. But they'd have to actually experience it. But there are people I think that wouldn't happen for, and I'm just like, what has mentally changed in brains that make people think that that's not okay anymore? Because I'm like, how do you think McDonald's didn't always exist? Like, Publix didn't always exist, you know?
Yeah.
So even if you weren't the one, you know, you weren't hunting it, but maybe you were just slaughtering the cow in your backyard, like, it was still your pet until it wasn't your pet and it was your dinner.
Yeah.
That should be a normal thought, but it's not. So that's why I want to go
really
back.
far removed from it.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, I mean, there's not a lot of bow hunters out there. I think it's a growing sport from what I've noticed, but in general, like, there are a lot more people who don't bow hunt or don't hunt at all versus do.
Yeah, if you compare hunter to non-hunter.
Hunting's, believe it or not, actually declining in numbers, but
if you compared hunters to non-hunters, there's an enormous amount of non-hunters.
No, of course, but I'm saying, like, hunters as a whole has actually declined over the years, but I think it's become socially more understood because I always say that even vegans, I think oftentimes, like, that I've spoken to, kind of respect hunting, even though obviously they like do something different, because they think like, oh, that is a more organic way to do it than like
it's
farm
a way
raising,
more, as
you know?
someone who was a vegan for a while and vegetarian, hunting is a lot more humane than
For sure.
farm raised.
By far.
Like farm raised, that animal lives a horrible life.
Not always.
So that's what-
like there
that's
are a
why-
lot of free range cattle too.
Okay,
which
yeah.
I think's important.
I
to-
should say,
But like there are some that certainly are live
Yeah.
awful lives.
But then are you
chickens
paying that
especially.
extra number for? And
Yeah.
there's a difference in free range, farm raised, and then like
grass fed is
grass
another
fed.
We
one.
watched
It's
that
like the
YouTube.
square. Yeah, was it with you that I watched
Uh-huh.
this? It's like the square footage that the
Mhm.
animal has determines whether it's like grass fed, farm
Yeah.
raised, free range, and like even I think it's farm raised or whatever. It's like. I don't want to, don't misquote me here, but it's like a ridiculously small number that's
Mhm.
considered farm raised. So I'm like,
Yeah.
that animal's still living on top of like 1,000 other chickens, you know?
Yeah.
The only one that actually looks like they live a somewhat like replicable life of a
Mhm.
normal wild animal or cow or whatever is free range. And so it's like, that's why I was like, so what was your decision? Was it just for like health purposes or like moral purposes of doing vegan and vegetarian? Because I did, out of college, I did 3 years of vegan
Mhm.
life, and mine was almost more from a moral standpoint.
Okay.
Of like, I felt bad about killing animals. Weird that I then became a hunter.
Yeah.
Again, like that's why I think if you
Mhm.
do it once, you're like,
You're like,
it's
oh,
most
this is
natural
great.
for
Yeah.
your way to do it. Like they're just chilling there in front of you, like
Mhm.
eating their grass, and they lived a normal life, and they had fun, and they played with other deer, and
Yeah.
like they had no idea it was coming, and then boom, 10 seconds later, like he's dead. He felt no pain. Like
Yeah.
it's over. Versus like the stress that even a cow feels being shuffled into the line before it's shot in the forehead with an air gun. Like
Yeah.
the moral thing is what made me do the vegan thing
Mhm.
for 3 years. So like, what made you do it? I guess. And, like, did you have any qualms with people who ate meat, or just for health purposes?
Not at all. So I never did it from like a moral standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, how I became vegetarian is I made a bet with someone on my dive team of who could go without meat the longest.
Yeah.
I obviously
Are you
won.
honestly-
I really committed to that. I think he went 2 weeks. I
10
went
years
10
later,
years.
you weren't talking to
Yeah.
any of them, and you're like, I'm still winning.
Like I beat you guys. No, I think so. That's how it started, and I just felt better not eating meat.
Mm-hmm.
Just like felt lighter, and like my body felt better initially. And I still can't eat a lot of meat. Like I eat a lot of fish. Like I've eaten that for the last maybe like 6 or 7 years ish.
Mm-hmm.
But even now, like I can't really eat chicken. Like it makes my joints hurt. That sounds like super weird. But
Yeah.
that's like what happens, and apparently it's something that can happen to people. I don't know. But yeah, it was never like a moral thing. It was more so I just like tried it as part of a bet and then felt better.
Yeah.
Being vegan though, I got really sick. So like my iron levels got super low. I wasn't very healthy. So then I switched to being vegetarian, and then probably like 2 months ago I started eating like turkey. So I'm like slowly trying to
Introduce it back in.
meat back in, and really started doing that because I put so much strain on my body. Like
Yeah, you
I need
the
protein in order to recover, and I was noticing I wasn't recovering as quickly as I should.
Yeah.
And as soon as I started adding in meat again, like my body is recovering and working much better than it
Yeah.
was prior.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm kind of always playing around with my diet, but
Yeah.
now that I'm like
Mm-hmm.
eating meat again, I'm like, okay, I would feel like okay going hunting, because I would hate to go hunting and not eat the meat. Like I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
that that's a gap.
And I
Yeah,
wonder
you
how you
have
would
to.
react, maybe even
And that's the thing.
slightly
All
better.
hunters, like everyone who hunts for the meat, like 1st and
Mhm.
foremost. Like that's why hunters do it, you know. And I think like that's a common misconception is that like a lot of people like just trophy hunt. Like you
Mhm.
see that deer on the wall there, and you're like, oh, you didn't eat the deer, but I did. That's just foam inside
Yeah.
of it, you know. Like all the meat is in the freezer. Like I ate the deer.
Yeah.
And all those ones and this one, like I ate them all, you know, or like somebody did,
Mhm.
my family or friends or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's always the first thing. And as long as you know, when you go hunting, you're like, yeah, I want to introduce this to my diet and
Well, that's what
whoever.
I wonder how well, like, I must wonder if you would receive game meat better than, like,
Probably.
a processed chicken or whatnot, because they're so lean. And then
Mm-hmm.
you can determine, like, whether you process it yourself or you know somebody, like, say James processed your
Mhm.
meat for you or something. You take the processor and you tell
Mhm.
them, like, I only want this percent of fat added
10%,
to the,
yeah.
you know, the...
Yeah.
Because they do add, like, regular fat to
Mhm.
it because it is so lean.
Yeah.
But I wonder if you kept it lean, you know,
Yeah.
and it's raw. There's no
Yeah.
chemicals in it, so it's like
Like
wonder
no
if it would-
antibiotics, no steroids.
Yeah.
They lived off the land.
Unless
Yeah.
maybe you like kill a deer that lives on like a cornfield, then
Yeah.
he's eating that
little
corn that's
different.
fertilized
Yeah.
and you know
Yeah.
chemicals are added to grow it so quickly. But
Right, but
that
like
might
for
be
example,
the only.
like
only
look
time.
at the deer I just shot. You know, he lived in the desert probably his whole life. You know, that deer is not eating anything other than the natural resources out there on the hill.
Munched on some hydration cactus.
No
and-
GMOs, no hormones, no
Yeah.
steroids. You know, like that's going back to what like our ancestors ate.
Mhm.
You know, not this. Like chicken breasts are not supposed to be as big as they are now.
Not
Like, when
not
you watch-
even close.
not even
Look at the
remotely
turkey,
close.
which is my
Whereas
personal
that
fan
deer,
favorite.
he's
but-
the same size he would have been 200 years ago.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But maybe
Like,
even smaller now, just because of the scarcity of
Could be.
food sources for them.
Could
but
be.
like think of like the turkey leg you get at Disney or at the fair.
Yeah, right.
And it's like you look and you're like, is this a damn ostrich leg? Like,
Mhm.
what turkey has a leg that big?
It's
Yeah.
because they're taking growth hormone
Yeah.
and steroids and
I mean-
peptides. Like they're taking all sorts of shit.
The meat industry is a business. It's a very profitable business where
Yeah.
if they can get animals to get as big as possible with like the biggest meat.
Cheapest
Mhm.
cost for feed. Too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was just at like that ship commission that I just did in Texas. Went and we toured the King Ranch and everything. We get to see like their cattle and whatnot. So we take the tour, and at the end they tell you like about how the ranch
Mhm.
process wise works. They only, again, I'll give you like an estimate. It's like 400 to 600 pounds is what that cow gets to before he goes to the feed farm on the ranch. So like they live a free range life
Mhm.
until they reach that weight. Then they go to the feed farm where they eat nothing but like fried corn. It's like heated fried corn. They go in like a month's time from 400 to 600 pounds to 1,200 pounds.
Oh my
So his whole life,
gosh, dude.
he only made it to 400 to 600
Oh
pounds.
my
That cow
God.
then doubles or triples its weight in a month to
Don't
like
get
3
me
months
wrong.
time.
I'm sure those
before they
steaks-
get sent to
I'm
slaughter.
sure those
Oh, yeah, I
steaks
mean,
hit crazy.
The ranch
Oh,
is
I'm
one of like the
sure.
most
Yeah.
well-known one in the
Yeah.
world. So like the meat is like
The top
they go
tier, I'm
through
sure.
the biggest diagnostic
But not
process to like
health-wise, probably.
ensure
Yeah.
that like they blood draw their cow. They do all
Yeah.
this crazy
Yeah.
stuff to make sure like the lines are good, like
Mhm.
the lineage lines of the cows and
The
whatnot.
marbling.
Yeah.
Mm.
Marbling.
Yeah, but can you imagine that like
Yeah.
he's still only naturally we reached a half or a third of his weight to what he actually got to go off to
Pasture.
yeah
Yeah.
go off to
Which is a
pasture.
shoot. Yeah. Got the pasture.
Yeah, I think they've actually changed.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure if a vegan ever got a hold of this podcast, James, we'd get fact checked a lot. But
There'll be some
um,
farmers in the comments too. For
yeah,
sure.
yeah,
Yeah, which I love.
but they have updated the ways in which, or some places have the way in which they do like process the cow at
Oh,
the
for
end.
sure. Yeah, no.
Because they did
regulations,
come
yeah.
like statistics or research did show that like it did bad things for the meat for them to induce so much stress before they actually
for
got
sure.
killed.
Yeah, 100%.
But I don't know what the new way is to do it. Like,
Yeah.
how do you euthanize the cow? I have no idea what
I mean,
to do.
yeah,
but,
farming. I love farmers. Like, you know, I've hunted a lot of big farms and ranches, and those cattle live on like gigantic properties and
Yeah.
never see a
Mhm.
person in their
Look
life.
how many
And
cows
then
I've tried to
Brianna
pet
tries
hunting.
to pet them, and they're like, I don't know
Fuck
what
off.
that is. Like, get out of here. I know that they're not living terrible lives, all of them. You know, a lot
Mm-hmm.
of dairy cows are and stuff like that, but it's untrue that like all cattle live this awful life. Like,
For
it's
sure,
not
for
true.
sure, yeah.
Because I've
well,
seen
there's
it
a lot of
firsthand.
ethical farmers.
Oh,
Like,
of course.
especially, I
Mhm.
feel like it's growing in popularity because people want that in general.
For
Yeah.
sure, yeah.
They
like,
want healthier meat
But it's
and
really
food.
It's so expensive.
You gotta
Ethically
lease like
fine.
public.
My understanding, I'm not an expert.
Well,
in
you
this,
gotta
but-
lease like public land. That's why in a lot of states I hunt that are mostly public land, like there will be cattle that ranchers run
Mhm.
on public land, and they have like a lease figured out with the state land that
and
do it.
The,
Yeah.
the ranchers, the cowboys, still go around on horses
Yeah.
and wrangle up all the
yeah,
cows.
literally.
And
So OG. Yeah, I love it.
Mhm.
That's cool.
Here's my thing, okay? What a great conversation. This has kind of been all over the place, which is what I like, okay? But you have done a lot of sports, okay? Your thing is, what you told me, is you like to be mediocre at a lot of sports.
Yeah, good enough to participate.
Mediocre
at as
to above
many-
average.
Right.
Yeah, slightly above average at as many sports as I can.
Okay, so of the sports that you've tried, and you've kind of done a lot of shit, which one's like the hardest? Like, and let me give two options.
Okay.
Give me a hardest in terms of like technical abilities that
Okay.
you've done, and then like a physically hardest.
Okay. So I would say technically the hardest would be jujitsu. Like that is something you can't cheat at all. Like you can be talented because of like having general better body awareness than someone else, but you cannot be good at jujitsu day one.
Right.
Like, because you don't know what you're doing, you don't know the technique. So I would say technically that's probably the most challenging. The hardest, I mean, hard to say because there's like a hardest physically and then a hardest mentally. So hardest mentally is ultra
give me one of
running.
each. One of each.
Okay. Hardest mentally is ultra running. Because in ultra running, what's really interesting, I think, is the body tends to want to stop well before it actually needs to. So when you're doing an ultra, like my last ultra that I did, around mile like 26, which is not close to being done, my knee started hurting and my ankle started hurting. And there's this concept where if it's a 4 or less, you can endure it and it's not an injury. But if it's a 4 or higher, you need to pay attention to it and you may need to stop. But you maintain this level of pain for like hours. And knowing that that's just part of it. Like the pain is part of ultras that you have to mentally get through.
Mm.
And that you go through like the pain cave, which is like
Yeah, I
this
sure wish mine was in
mental
that.
toughness that
Yeah.
you have to like work through
Yeah.
and just overcome. And what's really interesting with ultras as well is you go through these like different highs and lows, and like you can go through a really challenging point where you feel like absolute trash, and you can come out on the other side of that and feel like you have brand new legs. Like just you witness the body's ability to adapt and change over
Yeah.
this like really strenuous, painful thing. I don't know, it's like very fascinating to see what like
Yeah.
the mind can do
That
despite
is.
the body being in pain. And like I think it's cool. Why I love it is I'm like curious. That's why I do so many sports. But to see like, okay, I did that. Like my last race was a 12-hour race. My next race will be 100K, which is like 62-ish miles. And it started for me doing 4 miles. I was like, I wonder if I can run 4 miles.
Yeah.
I'm like kind of extreme. So I guess keep that in mind with this. But it started with 4 miles, then 4 miles I was like, I wonder if I could run a half marathon. Ran a half marathon, threw up everywhere, went horribly. But then after I did that, I was like, I wonder if I could do a marathon. And I did a marathon. And then since then, it's just gotten like more and more mileage out of this. Like, I haven't met my limit yet. But when I was trying to learn how to run 4 miles, I never in a million years thought that I would ever do a 100K race.
Yeah.
Or a 12-hour race.
Yeah, I wonder if you could just tag her in for your like run shoot, James, and she could just do the
Ever do a
Tag
You
me
can
in.
walk up with the rock and she can run with him.
Well,
Like, I'll see you guys up there in a couple hours.
yeah.
Go check
so
it out.
my plan, I don't know if this spot will come out before or after
Yeah.
I do it. It'll be more fun to kind of it's after.
Yeah.
But like my plan is to try to carry the rock up the mountain. If I have a choice, I'm gonna try to carry the rock all the way up the mountain is what I want to
Tell
do.
you gotta start either running with a rock or put a vest
I think
on.
I can do it because physically I know I'm strong. Like I know I'm not weak.
Mhm.
How far do you go with the rock?
I think it's like 2.5 miles, but it's all like pretty
Is it
steep
in a
uphill.
pack
No,
or are you holding
carry it.
on your
Hold it.
arm?
Carry
Yeah.
it.
So it's like the most awkward, uncomfortable
It's uncomfortable
thing.
to carry, but like
Okay.
I know my
Yeah.
strength's there, and I know my endurance is not bad, especially if I'm not running. Like, but who knows? Maybe Cam wants to like. I'll tell him, hey, the most I ever ran is 2 miles. Maybe he's like, all right, we're gonna go run 7 miles, and I'm like, I'm gonna do it. Like, I'm not gonna not do it. I'll be slow as shit, but you know, I'll do it. But I kind of like I want to carry the rock, and like if I have a choice, that's what I'm gonna do.
Yeah, it's too
But-
bad you're. So
But it
you
would
were
be
talking about
funny
the.
to tap her in. Like,
Yeah.
obviously, she wouldn't like. I would probably be better at carrying the rock up than she would, but she definitely would be better at running a long distance than me. So it's
Yeah.
like it's funny, you know. But we'll see.
It'd
Like,
be funny if your run were before, but I don't think it's not. If you did fly up there and was like your like, what do you call it? Your
pacer.
pacer
Yeah.
buddy.
Yeah.
Just to see like, you know, for the first time, like don't run that length before
Mhm.
and just show up and be like, all right, will I make it mentally 6 miles?
I'll
you
be
know?
honest with you. If I am not on that hunt, she'll have
You
to
go
give me the
do
dates
it.
for her run. But I will do it. Like I'll be her pacer if I'm not on that hunt. But if I'm not, I
I
would
don't
love
know
to
who
try
would
it.
be motivated.
And I don't know what's
more.
the pace. Like, are you doing like a 10-minute pace?
No, so when I'm doing an ultra that's that long, I hike the uphill, run the flat, run the downhill. So my pace during my last ultra, which ended up being like 55 miles, was like 12 or 13.
I can do that.
Oh,
for
you
six.
It's
got it.
super
I can do
slow.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's like
Yeah, I can do that.
you're
I would love to do it. We can vlog it too, make like a video from it. It'd be kind of fun.
it makes
Yeah.
it interesting. Like I think it's interesting, more interesting because you're like running's naturally very like boring sport, but it's like you're running the flat, running the downhill, so you actually look forward to the uphill because you're hiking it, and it's just
Mhm.
like changing the muscle groups that you're using, and you get to like be in the mountains.
Yeah, how
for
do
like
you-
hours.
How like so I know nothing about these. Do you get multiple pacers or
Depends on the race. Like some, I mean, I like my
you
last
get to
race.
choose
I
where
got
the 6 mile like pacer gets to be within the race at least for you. Like, hey, I need you at the end to keep me moving. Or
So if someone's being like strategic about it, they'll plan their pacer based on like their pacer's personality and what they think that they will need during certain sections of the race.
and like where maybe like their lull is, like
Mhm.
where they feel it is in
because like
their race.
having fresh energy is like really nice when you're like
Oh,
super
he's got
tired.
that for you.
I do have that.
And it's
Yeah.
nice too. So I had a friend pace me for my last race, just kind of towards the end, and like I was really tired, and I didn't want to have to think, and so it was nice to have him there because he was like, drink this, eat this, drink your water, like
Mhm.
pick up your pace. Like it was nice to have someone tell me what to do because I was really tired and like you're running. I typically run kind of on lower calories than I should because I struggle with eating during these races, which I'm working on. But yeah, it's like nice to have someone to make those decisions for you, to look out for you when probably mentally you're like
Just
not as, your decision making maybe isn't going to be as good as it
No.
would be
No.
if you
they
hadn't,
wouldn't be at the highest
No.
point.
if you didn't have like 40 miles under your
Yeah.
feet and you're like
Do
tired
you,
and hot.
do you like run with like a little belt that has like your snacks and your water in it for these ultras, or like how do you get your snacks and your
You have
water
a pack,
in?
like a water pack. So it's like a running vest that has, I have 2 bottles in the front that I usually will put some sort of like high carbohydrate drink in.
Mhm.
And then I have a 2-liter bladder as well in that. And then I'll put like extra clothes and snacks and whatever I think I might need. And you just kind of trot along with that.
Snacks. Should have done this before my knees blew out.
You know what's funny is like because I've known her for so long, I don't think I ever would have guessed that like endurance stuff would have been your thing. Like when
Yeah,
we were
no, me
younger.
neither.
Because like your
Well-
your build, and I don't mean this like disrespectful. She always kind of had like not a big build, but like you were like a
I was like
more
thick,
bulky-
athletic.
You were like a bigger build, like realistically, you know.
Yeah.
Like, I've never seen you built like you are now in my whole life.
That's what I
Yeah.
feel like running does to people.
You know what I
though,
mean?
Like,
Yeah.
we were
And
talking
so
about it earlier.
that's why when you got into this, I was like, it doesn't seem like a natural fit, but I don't think it is for anybody. Like, you know, even Cam, for example, he bangs out 200 miles. You know, he's not necessarily built like a runner. Like, he's not real tall. He's
I
not
would-
lanky.
Oh yeah, not built like a runner, but he is lean.
But he also carries
you know?
more muscle than most runners.
Yeah.
Mhm.
He's not tall, like doesn't have long legs, and like he's not necessarily built like a runner, but he's an excellent runner because he's worked at it for so long and he's so goddamn relentless. You know, like.
And that's the thing that I love
You know?
about running is it's like there are people that are so talented, like
Courtney, for example.
Courtney DeWalter. She is so gifted, and she is not only like physically gifted with running, but she's like mentally has this grit that is insane.
Yeah.
Like to the point of like some people worry about her because her mental toughness is like how far is she going to push?
Yeah.
But like someone can just start running, and if your body cooperates, which I'm really lucky that my body has stayed like healthy and I haven't had any injury, and I've like gone from someone who hated the mile in high school and was not fast and who hated running to someone who now like runs really far for fun. I never thought that would be my thing.
I didn't either, and that's why I'm
Yeah.
saying like I was just surprised by it, you know, because like I
brain's
wouldn't
amazing
have guessed
thing.
that was your sport, you know. I
Yeah.
felt like you were built more like to maybe like the shit I do, like bodybuilding or weightlifting, you know, like I do think you could be good at that. Like I think you have a good build for it, but like I never would have guessed that like Ashley gonna do endurance shit. I never would have guessed. And I think
Yeah.
it's cool because to me it shows that anybody can kind of, you know, so long as your body holds up, can do whatever they kind of want to do, you know, and I think that's dope. Like,
Yeah.
for me, like, it's interesting because, like, I'm very, like, a one-track minded guy, and you've probably seen that since you know me. Like,
Yeah.
I was
You're
like
hyper focused.
I've always been a bow hunter, like my whole life, but then I got into bike riding, and that was all I did for like a 5-year span. I made it pretty high in bike riding, right? And then it was like, okay, I'm gonna flip back to what I always done, which I did the whole time, just not as much. It was like back to bow hunting.
Yeah.
And I'm not the type to like, the two things I do are weightlift and do archery and bow hunting. And I think that's part of the reason I've been able to grow like Bow Disciples so much and be such like a successful bow hunter and good at shooting is because I'm so one track minded.
Yeah.
I think that's what makes me good at things.
For sure.
But also I really respect when people are more of like a Swiss Army knife. I have friends like that who they'll kill me at most things. Like they're not gonna kill me at what I do. Like, but you know, but like they'll beat me at a bunch of stuff. You know, and I think that's what's fun about life is just like not everyone has a desire to be the best at something, but like other people do. And it's like so cool when like there's like this mutual understanding of like we're all trying to be really good at whether it's a lot of things or one thing.
Well, and I think too, for me, I used to only do sports I was good at, which was not very many. It was
Right.
gymnastics and diving. Like I did those and I was good at those and I stuck with those.
Yeah.
And in high school and when I was younger, I would avoid sports that I was naturally bad at because I was like, oh, I'm never gonna like excel at this. For me, when I started running, I'm not a good runner. I'm not a gifted runner, but I was like, I'm going to become better than most people at this sport, and I decided to do that.
I love that.
It took a really long time,
Yeah.
and I'm still quite slow, but like I am a better runner than most humans.
But what average human
sure.
is running 55 miles?
No,
So that's
For
the thing.
sure above average.
But it's cool. Like I'm very proud of myself because like young Ashley would have never done this or never had the self-confidence to do something that she sucked at.
Like I was saying earlier, you know, like it surprised me, but it's so dope. You should be proud of that. I think it's awesome.
Yeah.
So it's been fun to be like, and it's opened my like want to try new sports that I'm not good at, and that's why I'm like a jack of all trades, master of none. Like I'll try all these sports. I'm not good at them, but I'm gonna try them, and I have fun doing it. And if I suck at them,
You know,
That's why
That's
he said,
okay.
"Hey, take me snowboard." He's like, you don't want to start snowboarding. I was like, I tried skiing. I sucked at it. Let's move on to try snowboarding. I get it. Everyone says it's harder than skiing. We're going to do it anyways.
okay,
but
hard
obviously
to
the kids are
learn.
gonna struggle with it too.
I know. Well,
Yeah.
let's hope by then we have a
Yeah.
path to.
To new knees
To
or
new
better
knees.
knees.
Yeah.
Better, yeah.
I don't want to
Okay.
move to the like injection thing, but you know, they're on the feeling of like I should have already been on them.
Mhm.
But I would love to see and hope that they look at them and they're like, no, like a form of PT will help, but the pain is not a pain, and I have a very high pain tolerance. It's not a pain that I would say it's like
a 4 or less.
When you can run less than 1 mile and like you are gimping back to your front door, or like they're the size of literal like cantaloupes.
Yeah,
you can't see
normal.
knee from thigh to calf. There's no distinction, and you gotta ice them and heat them like every single night. It's like
something's wrong.
Okay, something's not right here. But I would like to hope that we'll find a path that we can try things like snowboarding, and I can go back to running. Like I've gained. So I was like 114, I think, when I met James. But I was also, when I moved out here and continuously, I was running, like I said, like anywhere from 2 to 5 miles a day. I'd come home from work, take care of Albikins, play, go run in the evening, come home. And that's all I did. I had nothing else to do out here. And it just got so bad that it's like I've gone up 20 pounds since not being able to run. And he's like, well, just start doing it again. Just start, it's like the pain is literally like inhibits like that even want to push through it. And you do, and because I do it, and that's where it's like, where's my drive? It's not in just like you have to have a real mental fortitude, because like running down the street here, I'm like, it hurts, let's run home. You go hunting and it's like, no, I will get up the next morning, even if it's a little later than James gets up. We all don't wake up like the Energizer Bunny, but we get up and they're still swollen, and I still get out there and I go every single day. He's like, what? I would say the one that did the worst was Utah. That's where they got, and it was a different elevation. I've never been to 10,000 feet. So like between the elevation, the steeper hikes, they like did a number that they've never done before. And so that one, I think I took, it was like a day and a half off total. I took one morning off, and then we took like one full day off at the hunting or something. But I'll just follow behind him. I might get there 15 minutes after he gets there.
I'm coming.
But
Don't wait for me.
I'll see you there when I get there. Don't worry about it.
Brianna is a trooper, I'll say that.
I might go a whole lot slower than him and Matt do out in front of me, but
that's okay.
Well, one day I took her out hunting. It was just me and her, and I was like, yeah, we're going to hike up that hill right there and look with binoculars. And then I said, oh, now we're going to hike up that hill and look with binoculars. And like before you know it, we've done like 5 miles hiking through friggin' big hills. And I was like, we got all the way out to like the end where we were going to turn around. I was like, I probably messed up here. Like I probably did too much. And she friggin' does it, she makes it. She's tenacious, and I think that's dope. One thing that's, back to talking about athletes that I think is crazy is there are the very, very, very rare athletes that are like elite at a bunch of stuff. Like there's this guy Mookie Betts who plays for the Dodgers that's like the best. I mean, literally, he's a top 5 baseball player in the league. This guy's contract's like $360 million, and he deserves it. He's won a couple MVPs, 2 World Series. This guy can bowl 300s on like a regular basis. He's like 6'2" and can dunk a basketball. Like,
I mean, there are super athletes
just
like
different.
that.
Or Shohei Ohtani's another perfect example. This guy does stuff that literally people have never done in human history. And he does it like somewhat casually. Now, granted, he's a lunatic about baseball. It's all he does.
Yeah.
But this guy can pitch better than almost every pitcher.
Yeah.
He is maybe the best hitter, which, like, guys don't hit and pitch. He does both, and he's the best at both. He's also an excellent base runner. Like, steals tons of bags. Like, I'm like, no one does that. Like, who is this guy,
There's some athletes,
though,
that are
people
just
have
so
it.
talented.
Yeah. There's been a bunch over the years, like, Tom Brady. Well, Tom wasn't, like, the most natural athlete, but ended up being, like, such an insane football player, winning 7 Super Bowls, and then you got, like, Barry Bonds, who was, like, on a different planet, just a different planet. Yeah, sure, steroids later in his life, but, like, the first 15 years, he wasn't on that shit, and he was still the best, like, I don't know what gives people that next gear, but, like, some guys have it, and it's like, I don't get it.
It's just a natural gift.
You know?
Some people are just more gifted at sports than others. Like, I would say I was very gifted at diving. Like,
I feel that way about archery too. Like,
Yeah.
I think I'm gifted at archery,
And you just like,
And
you
hunting,
noticed
but-
amongst your peers, you start to pick up things faster than
Yeah.
they do.
Yeah.
I know I felt that with springboard diving. That was like my sport that I excelled at. But some people take it like even further. Like Simone Biles,
She's
literally-
a savage.
Yeah.
best gymnast of all time by far. And she's just,
Well,
she just has it.
what really impresses me with Simone too is generally women that are elite still will get smoked by dudes. Like even the guys that are like average. But like they were showing during the Olympics, like Simone was actually going higher than the best men on floor. And that never happens.
Or they're like,
Yeah.
So she's like so good to where I don't know, like you would maybe know, but like I would assume maybe the best guy would still beat her on floor, possibly. I'm not sure. And maybe they wouldn't. And that's like,
Yeah.
that never happens in any sport.
She does like
Yeah.
her
Just
her
'cause bodies
floor
are built
routine
different,
had
you know?
like the most difficult.
Remember how high she went on that one jump?
and
they
that
showed-
jump is the most
Yeah.
difficult jump or like trick or whatever I don't know what you call it in gymnastics, but like the most difficult one to do in like the world or something, and most
So
dangerous.
impressive, dude.
So it's like, no, I don't know if there would be a male that could beat her. Like,
Isn't that wild?
Yeah.
sure, maybe in something different other than
and
floor
like
or
rings
something,
or
but-
pommel horse.
And you
which
could
is
say
like-
you could say the same thing about Courtney too, the runner. She'll
Mm-hmm.
smoke dudes, but like, you know, in team sports that just it doesn't happen. So it's so cool when you see a woman who somehow is doing things that like they
Yeah.
showed her average jump height versus other women, and it was like double.
she's like an incredible athlete, and I think it's this combination of natural talent as well as like grit and hard work.
ethic too, yeah, of course.
Yeah, so when you get both of those, someone who's willing to work hard at the sport that they love, like you get those super athletes like
Yeah.
Courtney Dauwalter and Simone Biles, and
Yep. Yeah,
it's
and
cool
like
to see.
And like I said, like, you know, like Mookie Betts, for example, or Mike Trout, like, because I'm a baseball guy, like, those are guys who are savages. Yeah, I'm, like Ashley said, those guys have immense natural talent, but I guarantee they're in the cages more than, like, some guy on the bench.
Mhm.
Like, 100%,
Yeah,
you know. And they have more talent.
yeah,
How are you going to beat that, you know? Like,
you got
it's tough.
both. Yeah, but I also think like, I don't know, being someone who's now 32 years old, that's never going to be like the best at anything in general. It's like, it is kind of fun to still train for something and work really hard at something,
Yes.
knowing that like, I'm not going to win this, but like, I'm going to do it, and
Yeah,
I'm going to be
yeah.
better than most people at it.
Yep.
And I feel like that's rewarding as an adult, and like, I'm very pro people who were athletes staying athletes their
Yeah.
whole life.
Me too. Me too.
Because I think it's really healthy for like your psyche, and I know for myself, my mental health is much better when I'm active and exercising and training for
Yeah.
something. So
Yeah. Being active is, I mean, I could never not be active. Like, I love weightlifting and I love archery. Like, those
Yeah.
are two things I know I'll probably always do
yeah,
as long as I'm physically capable,
Mhm.
which I hope is a long time. I'm pretty durable for the most part, so
Yeah.
hopefully that's like a long time thing. But I agree with you. Like, I just think it's important to stay moving and keep having goals to push for. Like, I always have goals I'm pushing for,
yeah,
whether it's like a performance thing or for me, YouTube's actually been extremely helpful in my life because it's given me a reason to shoot more and do more stuff and really push my skills. And then like when I get these collaborations lined up to shoot with people, I'm like, hey, I don't want to show up and lose. Like, I don't care who it is. Like, I have some collabs coming up with literally like the best archers in the world. Like,
Yeah.
one of them literally, she's probably the best in the world. And I'm gonna do a video with her, and I promise, like, I guarantee the Vegas odds would say she'll win, but I'm not going in there to lose.
well, you're really competitive
But that's
too.
just not how I approach stuff.
Yeah.
You know, so like even with you, like you know you're probably not gonna win, but it's like I'm still gonna go out swinging. Like, I'm gonna try.
Yeah,
You know.
I'm gonna do my best, and
Yes,
I will push
right.
myself past the point of like being comfortable
Yeah.
for the sake of like trying, and I won't win, but like I do okay.
See what I can do.
I'll
Yeah,
see what I can
love
do,
it.
you know?
I love it.
And it's, I think that I wish I would have known that when I was younger.
Yeah.
That it, like, you don't have to be the best. You can just like go do something for fun, do your best, like have a personal best, whatever that is for you. That's still valid and worthwhile and feels good. Versus, like, there's so many more people like me that are mediocre or okay at a sport than there are the best.
Way more. There's not that many people that are, like, elite and super talented.
And so
there's
it's
not
like,
that many.
why hold yourself to that standard of, like, I'm going to be the best?
Yeah.
And let's, like, obviously, you're really gifted at archery.
Yeah.
And you are so dedicated to that, just like you were with biking.
Right.
But
even
for those maybe who don't have that, it's like, well, who cares? Like, just go find something that's, like, fun.
I think the mental benefits that you get out of having just tried anyways, like, you don't realize it during the process until you've gotten far enough. But then you're like, I feel great. Mentally, I feel great. Physically, I feel great. And then that kind of keeps you going once you're in that better mental health standpoint.
Yeah.
But you have to just say yes to trying something, even if you weren't like, I want to be the best at it, or like, I want to win. It's just like, no, I want to try to do a half marathon.
Well,
and just by trying,
and
so
do it
people
to the
get
best you can.
embarrassed for where they're going to start at.
Yeah.
You know, like, I think
I see that all the time. Yeah.
where they're so ashamed of, like, where they're starting. It's like, maybe you're starting at a 15-minute mile. Which, like,
who cares?
Who cares, though? Like, you're out there doing it.
It's better than sitting in the couch eating Cheetos. You know, like, it's still a place to start.
It still puts you in the category of
being a runner.
Did a half marathon versus all of the other people
who didn't.
Who can't ever say, I did one. Who didn't do a half marathon. Like, you're already in a better category just by saying you've done one because you committed to doing it.
Yeah.
Like, who cares where you placed? If you don't look at it as, like, the placement within the race, but, like, the placement within just society in general, you're already better off than the rest of society
Dude,
is.
you know what? I love this conversation. Like, it's such a fun conversation because when I was a bike rider, and you knew me when I was a bike rider, like, early on, and then, like, through my biking career, when I started, was just like, oh, I'm pretty decent at this, but I wasn't great. I didn't have a ton of natural talent, but in my head, I thought I could be a pro bike rider. So, like, my thing was, all right, let's be a pro bike rider and make money bike riding.
Yeah.
And then when I did that in 2010, I was like, okay, now I want to be the best bike rider, you know, at what I do. And I gave that my all, right, for like 3 years. And there was a point, 2013, my last year, where I just realized I don't have it. Like, I'm willing to do the risk. I'm willing to put it out there. I do not have the talent to be as good as Brandon Sevenup or Brett Reeder. Like, I cannot be as good as them. And then after that, I almost grew this disdain for bike riding for a while. And I don't have that anymore. I'd love to hop on a bike and ride again. But there was a period where I wanted nothing to do with bikes because I was just like, I had given everything. And I was like, I'm not good enough to do this, to be the best.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be the best, you know? And I was literally ranked 7th in the world. And I was like, nah, that's not it.
Well, that's right.
And but like
nature,
to her point though, like, that's crazy how everyone's a little different. And with archery, I approach it different. Like, trust me, I'd love to be the best in the world, and I think I'll probably get laughed at, but I think I could do that. But even if I couldn't, I would not hate archery ever. I just wouldn't. I'm not in the same place now.
Yeah.
If you told me the best I would ever be is average, I'd be like, I'm still going to do it because this is what I love.
Well,
and
I think that's always been your first passion.
It was always my first passion. Whereas, like, with bike riding, it was kind of like, I don't know, I had something that was like, unless I can win Crankwork Slope Style, win Rampage, and win this, like, when I realized that wasn't in the cards, it was just like, I'm not going to do this anymore.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird.
But that makes sense, too. Because I know, so I was 7th in the world ranked for diving.
Yeah.
I wanted to be the best. I wanted to go to the Olympics. I got injured. That didn't happen for me. And I, like, really felt a lot of animosity towards that sport. Because I dedicated a majority of my life was dedicated to that sport. And even though I put in everything I had to that sport, ultimately, for me, it didn't pay off. And so, like, I had disdain for that sport as well.
It's crazy. It's the same shit, you know?
Which I think is pretty normal.
Yeah.
Like, if you have any athletes, which I'm assuming you do, that listen to the podcast, I think they
Yeah, of
probably
course.
align with that, where knowing, because you're told as a kid, like, you can do whatever you want if you put in the effort. But, like, that's not really the reality sometimes.
Especially
You know
once
what's-
you get to that level
Yeah.
of, like, greatness in the sport. Because
Yeah.
now you're beyond just, like, you surpass the, okay, I can try it. Okay, I can get halfway decent at it. Okay, at least I did it. Now it's like, okay, no, I'm really good at this.
Yeah.
Okay, no, I beat a lot of people at this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now I'm this close to being the best at it.
Yeah.
So, like, when you have that within your reach because
And
you're
you
so
see
good
it,
at it,
yeah.
I think that changes
Yeah.
the perception for athletes a lot.
Mhm.
Because now, for most of us, that's not within reach.
Yeah.
So it's just like, hey, at least I tried it. But
Yeah.
when you're that good at a sport, now you can physically see it in front of you. And
Yeah.
so when you, like, whether it's injury or just, like, you just know, like, talent-wise, there's some people out there that are better.
Mhm.
And, you know, and it's not your number one passion, you know,
Mhm.
it's like, it can create, that's where, like, that, like, almost like for some people, it's like mine was with music or whatever. I knew I was never going to be the best, but, like, you're competitive enough at it that, like, so not like a self-hatred, it's not a good word for it, but, like, I don't know, like, the self-discipline, and then you're annoyed with yourself because you're not getting, like, to where you want to be, and then that creates disdain for the sport because you're not reaching the goals that you want.
Yeah, it is weird. Yeah, like for me it was very clear. I remember, like, I was learning so many tricks so fast, and I was even learning stuff that was, like, ahead of the curve that the best guys were doing. And then I was doing stuff that nobody had done yet, and I was like 16, and I was like, oh, I think I got this.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, it just, like, it ended. I couldn't learn tricks anymore. It was like I had reached my peak. And I'm watching the shit that other guys were doing. I'm like, that dude's so much better than me. Like, you know.
But
there's
let me
no
ask
way,
you this.
you
Do
know?
you regret all of the hard work you put into biking?
No, I love it. I love it. It was such a phase of my life that I really love, you know.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because you said something that I kind of, like, felt the opposite as an athlete, where, like, you felt like you wanted to do diving and get better at it because you thought you know, were at the peak, at the peak, or could get to the peak. I felt that way for a year or two, but initially, or actually, you said, you know, people always say, like, as a kid you can do anything you want, and if you want to be the best you can. I never felt that way. I always felt like no one thought I could be. So I said, because of that,
Okay.
I want to get there because I want to show everyone that I can, you know, and unfortunately I came up short on it. But, like, you know, I kind of approach it from, like, this point of, like, trying to
Like,
fight
proving
back
everyone
and prove
wrong,
people.
yeah.
And I kind of still feel like that with what I'm doing now. The difference is now is, like, I think my talent is just, like, I just think it's different in this than it was in biking. I think it's much more natural. I think my ceiling with what I'm doing now is much higher than it was with biking, you know. Even though my ceiling was pretty high, I think it's higher in this. But I still have the mindset of, like, I want to show people that I can do it because I don't think people believe that. And it's probably not even true. They probably do, but, like, in my head, that's how I feel, you know.
Yeah.
It's weird.
I mean, everyone has their own driving factor
Yeah.
for, like, doing hard things.
Isn't that crazy?
Which is so interesting. It's
You
usually
know.
like how you grew up, or like what sort of adversity you faced as a kid or whatever. But I don't know, it's really interesting. Every athlete kind of runs differently, but there's a lot of similarities. Like how you and I now approach sport is, like, starkly different. Like, you are a specialist, and I'm a generalist.
Right.
But we both have, like, obviously, we've been talking about sports for, like, I don't know, an hour.
Which I love, by the way.
We both have such, like, a passion for what we're doing, even though it's a different way of going about it. Bottom line, I think, for, I guess, anyone listening, like, just go do something, have fun, and if you fail, who cares?
At least you tried it.
You know?
I love it.
It's like...
Now, okay. I think this is a good place to cap the pod, but I wanna end with a little segment that I think's pretty fun.
Oh no.
I think you should either ask her questions or you should tell her some shit about me when I was, like, way younger. That's, like, wild that, like, she wouldn't know. Like, what's some crazy James stuff from when I was, like, 15?
You were just always so ornery. Like, he was just like an ornery little guy. And it was so funny because, like, it's funny you saying, like, you're always trying to prove people wrong. And I feel like when I met you, you exuded this, like, this, like, not arrogance, but this, like, ornery nature about you.
I don't know if that's changed at all.
Well, it's not a bad thing, but it's like, I've never met someone with so much, like want to prove, like, angst.
Yeah.
Like, general angst.
Yeah, well, I grew up on Lincoln Park and shit. You know, the Eminem, you know.
He has described this to me multiple times, and it just makes me think, like, what? You know, you were raised in a very good household, a well-off household, like, you went to a private school, a Christian private school, you did any sport you wanted to do. What happened that, like, or what, like, something, whether it's over time, incrementally, all at once, something had to have happened that either he's never shared with me or he doesn't know yet, doesn't recognize himself, that made him that way. Because he's described, like, that exact thing to me and says that, like, sometimes, like you just said, like, he still feels that way, he's got to prove it to the world and whatnot, but then displaying it before you know how to, like,
I feel, and it still exists, and I feel like James owning an Android phone. No hate to Android, you choose the phone you want. James has always, he's wanted the opposing, and he's been dedicated to the opposing, whatever it is. Whatever everyone else is doing, he's like, that's stupid, I'm going to do the opposite.
You could tell him the most logical thing in the world, that like, this, you should do this because of this, and it could be the most logical reason, like, this makes more sense. Like, that's goofy.
Be like,
I'm like,
you
what?
should not have a bowl cut at 17 years old. And he's like, you know what? I'm going to keep this till I'm 27.
It makes me wonder. I'm like, what happened to you? Like, you had a great childhood. Why are you trying to prove people wrong? Like, everybody hates you, and you like nobody thinks you're good at anything.
I do kind of run with that.
I'm
shit.
like, man.
I do, yeah. No,
and like, you're dedicated.
I am.
You're dedicated to the opposing choice.
You could ask her every single day of my high school era, 100% of the time. I wore Dickies shorts every single day.
I've seen
the
your
ones that
pictures
went
with
past
those
the knees,
and the skater shoes,
big
the oversized T-shirts. Look like you bought them from the Goodwill in the XXXXL section when you were still an extra small.
25. You know.
It's so you were dedicated to your bit. Like, whatever your bit was, you were dedicated to it.
It's still the same bit. He's just learned how to, like, portray it, I think, in a more professional, you know, like, manner in which somebody could still now approach him without feeling like they want to punch.
Yeah, a little more.
But sometimes I'm like, let's stop
more
going
tactical,
a
little bit
subtle versus
more
like
tactful now.
Your face.
Yeah, I feel
behind the scenes sometimes it's like, buddy, why are we doing this? Because
I love it. It's so true. It's so true. Well, this really has been this has been a pleasure.
Yeah.
Go follow Ashley, the all-around athlete. I just made that up. What's your Instagram page? Ashley Rose _.
No, it's I am Ashley Rose.
I am Ashley Rose.
That's my Instagram.
Yes. Go give her a follow and comment her third picture back and say podcast. Okay?
My third picture.
The third picture back, whatever that is at the time.
By the time this comes out, I mean, that could be a
all
different times that people go and see this.
Yeah.
But if they watched it 2 months
that
after
right
it
there
came out.
is Brianna Curley 91.
Yeah, real simple.
That's
gives you my age if you'd like to
the
know.
real Albus.
I should make him his own page.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you should.
He'd have a great page.
Congratulations, you did great today.
I bet you I couldn't
You
post
did
pictures
great.
of myself, but I could post pictures of Albie.
You did great. I appreciate everyone. Now let's go hit the pool.
All right.
Okay.